This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on the South Today, time is called on a 50-year-old jewellery business in South Dunedin. The public are invited to help record numbers of kururu or wood pigeons this coming week. And youngsters from Glenham School help replant a local wetland. Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa, good evening, ko Melissa Barton aho. Police in Timaru have launched a homicide investigation after finding 3 children dead overnight. Police say emergency services were called to a Timaru address shortly after 10 p.m. last night. Detective Inspector Scott Anderson spoke to the media this afternoon.
Police can now confirm that the deceased were children and siblings. 2 aged 3 years and 1 aged 7. Emergency services also located a woman at the property and she was transported to Timaru Hospital and is in a stable condition. Those involved had arrived in Timaru from South Africa in the last week. The investigation into this tragedy is still in its very early stages, though we can confirm that no one else is being sought in relation to the deaths of the 3 children. Police are still working to notify all next of kin, and for that reason, and to protect the privacy of those impacted by this tragedy, at this stage, police will not be releasing further details regarding the victims.
One of the longest running businesses in South Dunedin is set to close. McCullough Jewellers were established in the 1950s by Tom McCullough, and now more than half a century later, his son's made what he says is a tough call.
Robert McAuliffe is calling time on a 48-year career as a jeweller and watchmaker in South Dunedin.
Well, it is, yes. It's certainly a big decision to make. It's just simply a semi-retirement time of life, and to step back a little bit from the volume of work.
The business was established by his father Tom McAuliffe in 1956, and Robert joined the family-owned Legacy Jewellers as an apprentice watchmaker in 1973. He says it was a very hard decision to make and is quite emotional as many regular customers are popping in just one last time.
Particularly now when we've announced we're closing and all our customers are coming in and expressing their I won't say disappointment, but sad to see us go after all these years, because we have customers that are 2 and sometimes 3 generations of customers.
When he first joined as an apprentice, there were 4 watchmakers working in the store. Now it's just him. Robert McAuliffe says it's been on the cards for a while, but that didn't make it any easier. But he says there could be hope, as there's a bit of a back-to-the-future mentality with some high-end manufacturers.
All the top luxury brands are all going back to mechanical type watches, and of course require qualified servicing. And worldwide there has been a shortage of qualified tradespeople.
He says there have been some bad moments during his time there, including being held up twice. McAuliffe's is open until the end of September. However, Robert says he's still got a lot of work ahead of him, as he intends to work from home. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The family of a teen killed in an Outram crash 2 years ago is angry that an undersized stop sign still has not been replaced with a larger one. Teenager Jade Cummings died when the driver of a ute she was in ploughed through an intersection and into the path of another vehicle, killing the driver of that car. At a trial last year, the judge highlighted the issue of the stop sign size. A report after the incident noted the stop signs at the intersection were 25% smaller than recommended. The driver was found not guilty of dangerous driving causing death due in part to the sign and the fact it was almost totally obscured by foliage. Today marks the start of what is called the Great Kiruru Count, with public asked to make a record of any wood pigeons they might see. A spokesperson behind the project says it's focused on learning more about wood pigeon numbers around New Zealand. People who spot any kiruru over the next week are asked to submit their reports online or through a smartphone app. Last year, Dunedin had the second highest level of participation in New Zealand, with more than 2,500 wood pigeons counted. The count is now in its 8th and final year, with the data helping researchers understand where kiruru live and how best to protect them. Youngsters from Glenham School have been taking part in an Enviro Schools project this year that involves replanting a former wetland near Edendale. So far, the project has put in over 300 native trees and shrubs, with hard work going into keeping the plantings free from weeds.
This former wetland at the Glenelgan Reserve near Edendale is being replanted with native trees and shrubs by pupils from nearby Glenham School. The youngsters are now clearing away grass and weeds from the 300 or so planted shrubs as part of an Enviro Schools project which has given the pupils a chance to learn to identify different native species.
Harakiki. Yep. Conflex. And there's this one. Kofi. Mingy. Lancewood has a pattern, and the Pittsburgh grows super tall. It could grow about as tall as a metre or something.
The wetland area was gifted to the school by farmer David Clark 4 years ago. In Southland, the South Today.
Still to come on the South Today. Passengers' uptake of the B card in Otago pleases the Otago Regional Council, and another event falls victim to the uncertainty of COVID-19 restrictions. So catch this and more after the break.
Every season, we're proud to dress the region. Alex Campbell Menswear, it fits.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
Sharpen up! My mate John sharpened his pencil this weekend. He's taken 19% off lamp and coffee tables and a whopping 50% off Optima beds. Plus there's tons more deals in store. So sharp, you'll cut yourself. No one beats John on price. Sharpen up! This weekend only at John's Furniture Warehouse, Stafford Street.
Where did you get that furniture from? Stafford Street. And my mate John.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
Welcome back. More than 120,000 bus passengers in Otago have used the new B-Card system since it was introduced a year ago. The Otago Regional Council says it's pleased with the card's uptake, which has been much higher than the previous Go Card system. Contactless payment amid COVID-19 concerns, as well as fare concessions, are among the reasons for the B-Card's success. Of the 50,000 cards that have been registered, more than a fifth are with a Super Gold concession. Buses are also tracked with GPS, allowing people to go online with their smartphone or computer and see how far away their bus is. Oamaru's Victorian Heritage celebrations have joined the many events across the country to be cancelled due to COVID-19 uncertainty. The annual festival spans almost a week of celebrations of all things Victorian and caters to thousands of people. However, the events committee has had to cancel this year's celebrations. The committee says that the decision was not made lightly, having already put in hundreds of volunteer hours. It is disappointed with it, but unanimous in its decision. Next year's celebrations are to be scheduled to take place in the middle of November. The latest New Zealand Consumer Lifestyles report has been released by Otago's Consumer Research Group. More than 1,600 people were surveyed about their spending habits during last year's lockdown. Associate Professor Leah Watkins caught up with Daryl Bassett via Zoom to talk facts and figures.
Kia ora, Leah. Thanks for your time here today. So you've been studying our spending habits. What did last year's lockdown tell us about how we spent?
Well, what we found in the consumer lifestyle study was that the lockdown had really got people to reassess their spending. And generally, they reported that they had reduced their spending in most categories, but particularly around things like entertainment outside the home, restaurants, and of course, travel. They also reported increasing spending. So 26% of people said they had saved money over the lockdown and had reduced their consumer debt. And what we also saw was some brand switching behaviours. So people, about a third of people reported that they had either tried new brands or switched to less expensive brands, or were spending less on those sort of luxury designer type brands than they had been prior to lockdown.
Excellent. Your research has identified many types of, as you call them, lifestyle segments. What are they and what do each one mean?
Yeah, so we identified 6 segments in this study. The largest segment is called the educated liberals. So obviously these are just names we've given them based on their characteristics. But the educated liberals make up about a third of the New Zealand population. And they are characterised by high levels of education, high incomes. They are quite liberal in their attitudes. And they are high consumers of things like the arts and local community type events. Another segment is the financial strugglers. So this segment has the lowest income of all the segments that we identified. They also have low levels of satisfaction, and they're particularly concerned about income inequality and the impact that that's having. And their consumer decisions are largely driven by price, as you might expect. A new segment is the contemporary New Zealanders. So they were only made up 5% of the sample. So at this stage, quite a small and new segment. But what was really interesting about them is they were the most ethnically diverse segment, relatively young, so sort of 30s and 40s. They were also well educated and had relatively high incomes, but they were characterised by very strong political and environmental opinions. And they were really active consumers of everything. So media, goods, experiences, so just very active across the board. Another segment was the uncertain young. So this is our young segment. On average, they're in their late 20s. They are very content with their personal lives, but uncertain about life in New Zealand and what that offers them, and fairly neutral on the political and environmental statements or opinions that we measure. As you might expect, they're very physically and socially active, and they are a little bit materialistic, shall we say. So of all of the segments, they're the ones that have those desire for materiality that they associate with status and standing and things like that. Traditional family values is our other really large segment, and again, it's one that's been there for quite some time. And this is, again, an older segment, so people in their average age, 50s and 60s. They have very authoritarian and hierarchical views. They are the least concerned with environmental and social issues. And they're very careful consumers. They are materially and financially well off, but are very careful about their decision making. And the final segment we've termed the disengaged. So this segment generally don't have strong opinions on any of the things that we measure. They're not satisfied with their own lives, and they have their personal sense of well-being is not high. So their concerns are largely around their own personal health and well-being and those of people close to them. And again, as you might expect, they're relatively low consumers across all categories and not actively engaged in media particularly either.
Were there any results that particularly stood out?
For me, post the lockdown, the thing that stood out was that it had made us much more mindful of how we spend our money and where we spend it. So 57% from memory of people that we surveyed said that they were more mindful. And that was in relation to both what they were spending on, so where they were using their discretionary income, but also where their goods were coming from, whether they were sustainable. So I guess issues around supply chain over lockdown and issues like that made us think more carefully about the local economy and how we can support that. So for me, that was a really interesting and positive outcome.
Associate Professor Leah Watkins from the University of Otago, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Still to come on the South today. Football chat is back after a COVID-19 related lull in the season, and we take a look at the weekend's weather for you. So see you after the break.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
Every reason, every season, we're proud to dress the region. Alex Campbell Menswear, it fits.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
Sharpen up! My mate John sharpened his pencil this weekend. So sharp, you'll cut yourself. No one beats John on price. This weekend only at...
And my mate John.
MTF Finance can help you turn the key on your next vehicle with a loan made just for you. TCs and lending criteria apply.
Thanks for staying with us. Football Chat returns tonight after a COVID-19 related lull in the season, with commentators and players ready to get back on the pitch this weekend.
Hello and welcome back to a long overdue Football Chat. It's been far, far too long, Matthew.
Yes, it has been, Rahan. We are delighted to be back. Today we have Danny Ledworth from Football South. We are delighted to be joined by you, Danny.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, welcome, Danny. For those of you who don't know Danny, he's an Irishman. He came to New Zealand about 5 years ago with a group of friends to play football, just a bit of an overseas experience. But he must have missed the memo because all of his friends have left and he's still here.
You were once considered a bit of a promising up-and-comer in the Dunedin region on the football scene, yet we haven't seen you on a football field in about 2 years. What's that about?
Yeah, up-and-coming, I like that, to be honest. So last season I signed for Canterbury to play in the National League, 'cause obviously Southern had ended. And yeah, pre-season game one I got a bit of a bad injury. Thanks to Liam Whittaker, actually, funnily enough. But yeah, I got a bad injury and I was travelling up to Christchurch once a week doing rehab and stuff, and thought long story short, I thought it was okay. Went back out to train and it wasn't okay, and since then it's been a slightly on the back burner, I suppose, with the National League no longer existing. I thought I'd take this year to mainly focus on the new role and work, and focus mainly on that and try and get my knee right. So,
looking at the table, South City and Uni still remain in the hunt on 6 points, and GI are rooted to the bottom on 0, but they've only played 3 games, so don't expect them to stay there. The fixtures for this week coming: South City are hosting Coastal Spirit at the football turf. Uni go to Christchurch to play Christchurch United, and Green Island, Maddie, will travel to Christchurch to play Selwyn United.
With the exception of the Southern League, you don't have your normal men's Premier Football or your women's Premier Football. We just want to encourage everyone to get out and support your local teams, support your second team, your third team, your fourth team, your geriatrics. Rahan.
Show those highlights now.
Yes, we are, Rahan. Right, here we have Raven August from South City. We've put this goal on the show before and we're still unsure if Ryan Fleming meant that flick, but if he did, what a flick.
What a flick.
And a great finish by Raven there.
The second goal, Uni v Selwyn, Ben O'Farrell, great ball to Ben Daly, and a nice outside of the right foot finish.
Yeah, that's delightful.
Class.
Good to see a celebration as well.
Don't see enough of those these days.
You really don't. Now, former fan favourite out at Mossfield, Cam Anderson, has just curled that one into the top locker.
Keeps aside though, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah.
And the last one, the best in my opinion. We've got Olivier from South City. Did he mean it? I think he did.
The best in your opinion or the best in Danny's opinion?
In my opinion.
And then finally Garvin. To be honest, I've got to question the goalkeeper here. Yeah, ball goes in around middle of the goal. Yeah, I'm questioning the keeper. Sorry, Garv.
So I think we've covered all the bases there, Matt.
From first all the way to home, Rahan, we have. So thank you to our viewers. We hope you enjoyed watching. And Danny, thank you to you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you to you, Matt.
Thank you, Rahan, and thank you to you.
Thank you. Stay safe, Dunedin.
And time now for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Beginning with the southern view, more scaffolding being guided into place at Dunedin's railway station. Looking at the situation, cloudy and cold again for Otago Coast tomorrow, but sunny periods are on the way for Sunday as airflow tends milder and northerly. Starting at the northwest of the South Island, it's a wet day for this region with showers in Westport and Greymouth. Greymouth reaches 12 degrees and Westport 11. Moving to the northeast, the sun stays out with the occasional cloud, 13 degrees in Nelson and 12 degrees in Blenheim. Moving down to Canterbury, sun with the occasional cloud for this region, also a high of 11 degrees in Kaikoura and Otatahi Christchurch. Ashburton slightly higher with 12 degrees. And And moving down to the southern towns, light winds and fine weather for all in this region. The Catlins and Balclutha reached 13 degrees, Lumsden and Gore 14. Moving across to the Central Lakes, light winds and fine weather for all here as well, with 13 degrees in Queenstown, Alexandra and Tiana. Wanaka has a region high of 14 degrees. Moving to the northern towns, light winds and cloud on the coast with 9 degrees in Timaru and Oamaru. Inland, light winds, fine weather continue for Twizel and Damarama with a high of 14 degrees. In Otaputi, Dunedin, cloudy tonight with a low of 6. Cloudy and cold tomorrow with light to moderate northeasterlies, looking at a high of 9 and a low of 5. And it's a little milder on Sunday with northeasterlies freshening and sunny periods increasing, a high of 13 and a low of 9. And Waihopai and Vikago, frosty tonight with a chilly low of -1. Mostly fine and sunny tomorrow and Saturday with and Sunday it's going to be a bit milder with moderate northerlies and increasing high cloud. Looking at a high of 15 and a low of 0. And that's all for our news for this Friday and indeed the week. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. Remember to like and subscribe to Channel 39 and Facebook and YouTube so you can receive notifications of up-to-date content. Nō reira, kia pai te pou, ka kite anō.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.